certain people you want to come to your defence when others are criticising you, and one of them should be Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He's big, egotistical, scary, answers questions boldly, and according to his quotation, I actually loved the way he described his relationship with Paul Pogba, kind of the way I described my relationship with Jason to other people when they ask, is he said, my relationship with Paul is simple. I talk, he listens.
That's why I make more money than you. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, what?
just like Paul Pogba does.
So the reason we're discussing Zlatan Ibrahimovic is because Paul Pogba, the record-breaking signing, has came under a fair amount of scrutiny already in his early Manchester United career, part 2. It's because the thing about this is, right, I could give you the context as to why, but you've watched the games, I assume, at this point. He hasn't been great. Does that give me the ability to come in and rip him shred to shred, limb from limb? No, but am I right to question whether or not he is at this moment worthy of that huge transfer fee or whether he is playing to his potential? Of course it does. Because when you break the record, you are opening yourself up to a fair amount of criticism. You have a huge target. He would be as well having a fancy haircut like he does with a target on the back of his head for everyone to aim their criticism to him.
That would be awesome.
Be like,
if
haters, hit here.
If he got a target on the back of his head. There's only one major question I have for you, and it's not an easy one.
All right.
Do you want Paul Pogba to fail at Manchester United to back up the claim that he's not worth the money? Or are you wanting to see him succeed, and even though he is worth that crazy amount of money, there's no amount of succession he could have, I don't think that's even a word, there's no amount he could succeed with Manchester United that would back up any amount of money that is that grand?
I think whether
tough question.
I think it is a tough question, but whether he succeeds or fails, it still is not going to do anything to the ridiculousness of the market. Because Paul Pogba, when they sold the jerseys, I think it took a week for them to double their money on Paul Pogba jersey sales from the money they spent.
You should have paid him £200 million.
Which I think some of it obviously went to Adidas and other things, but I think it's fair to assume that they made their money back on him. But when you have players like Sissoko transferring for 30 million, we know that this market's ridiculous, specifically in the Premier League. You have a good season and you can drive a high price tag. So whether or not he fails or succeeds, it won't reiterate my claims any more so than what I'll do every year when I say that although the players are transferring for this amount of money, they're going to have to prove that they are of that worth. But even if they don't, it still won't prevent big signings like that happening.
No, of course not. Anybody who took Business 101 their freshman year of college, or if you're in high school and you're taking marketing, and other similar business classes would understand that value is not tagged to certain players for what they're actually worth. It's based on, as you've mentioned, the entirety of the market.
Yes.
Hence why Paul Pogba can sign for so much money. Hence why Gonzalo Higuain signs for so much money. And we think right now Paul Pogba is the highest transfer fee of all time.
Yep.
Right? In 2 or 3 or 4 years, somebody will come along. Look at Romelu Lukaku real quick. He could be somebody in a year or two who signs for that crazy amount of money based on how many goals he scored at age 23 season, going into his age 23 season, or between ages 23 and 24. My other question really is, how has he been playing, and the differences between Juventus Pogba and United Pogba?
So the thing about this is I did the tactics clip on Jose Mourinho and how when Paul Pogba kind of got signed in and how will Pogba fit in, and people are like, why are you doing a full tactics session on Paul Pogba? Like, we shouldn't be adhering to him. He should be adjusting to us. When the bottom line is, when you pay 89 million, you better believe that you're adjusting yourself to get the most out of him, because there's certain players that you won't adjust your system for because they are versatile players. You're not going to adjust your system for James Milner. James Milner is the most adjustable player in the world.
I've been wanting James Milner tactics for 2 years,
but
no one else wants it.
Mid. But when you have Paul Pogba, the benefits of adjusting a system to fit him are going to outweigh the negatives, because it's not like Juventus went, all right, how are we going to get the most out of Paul Pogba? It was collectively everyone thought, we're wasting him by having him drop so far deep. That is the clear point. Every single analyst, whether it's Phil Neville or it's Jamie Carragher, are saying the exact same thing. You don't want Paul Pogba having to worry about monitoring space, having to defend, having to track back. One, because at the moment, yeah, the criticism is merited. He is not working hard enough defensively. I don't care how much money is paid for a player like that. You better get your ass behind the ball and support your team, especially when you have players like Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva. That's not a tactical issue as much as many people thought. And I know it is a tactical issue. You need to set up with the defensive midfielder. But it is a clear decision that you should make as a professional footballer on the park without having Jose Mourinho whistle over and say, do that. Fellaini and Pogba should have looked at each other in the eye, known that they're two mature footballers, and went, one of us is going to have to pick him up. And then they just adjust. And then you nullify one problem. And there may be another problem that will happen because of that. Maybe Paul Pogba cannot press as high, and maybe, just maybe, someone a little deeper like Fernandinho picks up the ball, but he's got the ball 10, 15 yards away from where De Bruyne is picking up the ball. That should have been, that's a maturity issue. That's a leadership issue between Fellaini and Paul Pogba. That has to be criticised, and that deserves every form of criticism. Am I going to say that his career is already on the back foot and that he cannot make up amends? No, of course not. The guy has faced criticism for France, but then he'll pop up with a goal, and everyone will remember why he is touted to be one of the best players. But what you do is you make a conscious decision right now whether or not Jose Mourinho seems to be making that decision by dropping Wayne Rooney out of the Europa League game, and although he's probably resting him for the Saturday, because I don't think that when Mourinho's looking down his list, Europa League's the main thing. No, he's focused on the Premier League. It is going to be a competition. If he gets far, he will take it serious.
Wasn't just Rooney you dropped off that starting?
He dropped out a bunch of players. Well, Lingard, Mkhitaryan, Valencia were the players to be dropped because they've not been performing as well. Wayne Rooney, I still think, is a scapegoat. But if you're going to play Paul Pogba, the way he played for Juventus is that he almost flirted with a kind of left wing, kind of left central midfielder role, but he was given the freedom to pick up the ball in the final third. He didn't have to adjust his body, and then by the time he gets into full pelt, he's got 2 or 3 guys around him. When he had the ball, he was able to turn, have the box within 10, 15 yards from him, be able to strike from distance, which you know he can do, but then utilize his best asset. And I don't care what you think you know about Paul Pogba. If you think that Paul Pogba's best asset is anything apart from his vision and passing, then you're not watching the same player I've watched. He knows how to pick a pass up. His final product is great when he has the ability to do so.
I am on Team Pogba. I will not criticize the man because he doesn't need everybody criticizing him. He needs people like me just going.
He needs the advocates of the devil kind.
You're doing great.
Keep it up,
it's like he's like my Ja'Cory.
Keep it up,
I'm like Pogba's Ja'Cory.
Yeah.
Dude, you're doing great.
I
will criticize the hell out of him if he plays like crap for the next 6 months. But until I'm looking for more of a sample size. I also need more of a sample size for me because I need to watch it back to back to back to back so I can drill it into my head and understand it more. You watch it and you can pick up on trends similar to other sports that I can pick up on trends for.
What happens with guys that drive big price tags, Jason, is that they're specifically when they're attacking, is their ability to perform is quantifiable. It's like Zlatan has played quite horribly in the last 2 games. Hull, he never managed to score. I thought he was one of the worst players on the park at controlling the ball. But as long as he scores goals, no one is going to question it because he banged in a goal against Man City when he was given that option. That counts. And therefore, no matter how much I criticise him about his movement off the ball and his touch, if he's putting the ball in the back of the net, that's what he's paid there to do. So Pogba is expected to contribute assists.
A totally different
Yeah, he's expected to quantifiably. He is still being monitored, but if he's playing not the best and he's not adding assists and he's not adding the odd goal, then he is going to be criticised. So if you see him start to rack up assists, expect the criticism to drop off a little bit because that's what he was best at doing at Juventus. But I do think there needs to be some managerial decisions to adjust to Paul Pogba. And that is something that Jose Mourinho is not used to doing because if there's one man who has an ego as big as Zlatan and any other player in the world, it's Jose Mourinho, and he doesn't like to adhere to a kind of a lone wolf out there. But Pogba will come good if you allow him the ability to go forward and come good. So let us know what you think in the comment section below. Jason, you already commented in the section below?
I'm about to. I'm just looking up some information. I was curious. Nothing to do with Paul Pogba, though. I thought it was going to stay on his shot regardless.
Jason was already commenting in the section below. He already wrote first. How upset are you that Jason Rubin got the first comment in there? Francis_Maxwell, Twitter, Jason Rubin 91. Update on the Twitter scandal. I'm going to vocalize this on camera and be firmly embarrassed. The Twitter scandal surrounding Francis Maxwell's pursuit of his full handle without the underscore in there. has taken a turn for the worst when it comes to referring to me. It turns out that Francis Maxwell was in fact me 6 years ago. And I created a Twitter account when I was just a young boy in college. And since then, I don't know how to get it back. I've reached out to Twitter. Yes, there you go, Phil stamp. It's me. It's an old email that no longer exists, that hasn't existed for 4 years ago. It was a Hotmail account. That shows everything you need to know. So if you have the ability to reach out to Twitter and say, give Francis his own name from his own stupidity, then go ahead and do it.
Everyone knows Hotmail accounts are only used to create porn, to pay for porn.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty of my own stupidity. Thanks for reiterating that, Corey, and come back soon.